get to a line and we can have a chat.
Yeah, I think you stay as busy as I do.
They always say busy is a good thing. So, I mean, if sometimes I feel like this time of the year I start slowing down, but it almost kind of, with the whole podcast and stuff, it just kind of seems like it picks up.
Yeah, I'm backed up right now. I think we're backed up 8 months in editing footage because
Oh, my word.
we got back from Africa, had a small break, started hunting in the States, and we've pretty much hunted every day since. So between
Yeah.
here and Montana and Georgia and Florida and Ohio, we've just been steady. So,
Jeez.
and I've
Well,
still got a
Shaun,
couple weeks left.
yeah, well, you said, and apparently you had a bit of a show last night. So, I mean, you guys must be catching up with a bit of time here.
Yeah, I mean, you've been a PH for a long time. Those things happen. Sometimes people
Yeah.
make a bad shot, and you just, you wound an animal, and you got to go find it. It is what it is.
It's part of the game, man. It's part of the game. So, Sean, I want to know before we get into it, am I pronouncing your surname right? Is it Kogut?
It's Kogut.
Kogut. Okay, right. So, Saltlick Outdoors. Tell me
Yep.
where that originated from. What's it all about? I mean, yes, I've watched some of your footage, and I just love the way you present everything. Just the way the hunting scene is drawn upon, yeah, in South Africa and abroad.
Well, honestly, it started out of a passion for hunting, kind of like all of our lives did, and
Yeah.
it originated here in Kentucky several years ago. I bought a small farm, which was the first farm that I actually ever owned for myself, and it was specifically a recreational tract that we were going to use for deer hunting. And it was the name of the road to get into the place was Saltlick. That was the name of the road. And my buddy Mike and I just really enjoyed it. And from there, I went ahead and said, you know what, maybe I'd like to do a little outfitting, and started outfitting, ended up buying a couple other bigger tracks and then putting some properties together. And so we tried our hand at the outfitting thing for a couple of years, and it was good. It was successful, but I got to where it was a job, and I didn't enjoy the hunting side of it anymore. So we decided about 2 years ago now that, you know what, we're going to finish up the clients that we have already booked, and we're just going to focus on the social media side and try to bring what we like and love about the outdoors to other people, and from a perspective of every man can do it kind of thing. These hunts that we go on and things, we're not doing, statewise, we're not doing these big high fence hunts that cost, $30,000-$40,000. We try to capture the essence of, what anybody can come over and afford kind of thing, whether it's in the States or it's in Africa, and try to present it from a conservation side too, so people
Yeah.
understand it's not just trophy hunting. There is something behind it, and it means more. But yeah, and then we've started into merchandising now, and the new website's getting ready to go live, and we've got our podcast that's getting ready to crank up, and we've got Brianna that we brought on board as our social media manager earlier this year, and she's doing a really good job growing all the socials. And so, but yeah, pretty much that's how we got started. And, it really kicked things off for me with Africa, especially from a being able to film an environment where there's so many different huntable species of game, and there's so many opportunities. And that's kind of where it kicked off there. And, we've done that for several years now. And as kind of we grow a little bit, I went from the just throwing something out there, just to see a kill shot with some background music, to really trying to make a story behind it. And each hunt is unique for its own reason. And that's something I learned, it took a long time, and I actually didn't learn it personally. I watched how other people interacted during the hunt and what it meant to them. And that's kind of what I draw from. And, so those experiences and fun they have, and the ups and the downs and the roller coaster, that's kind of where I draw from when I'm trying to edit anything or do anything or set anything up. And it's, I want to bring the whole story, and I don't want to show just the fun parts. I want to show the ugly parts too. And I ask the hard questions. When I go to, no matter what outfitter we're at, we always sit down and we'll do a podcast, and I want to ask the tough questions and not beat around the bush. And I think that's the best way to handle those kind of things too. It's just to go straight to the point. And your podcast, you do that too. You ask the tough questions and you answer the tough questions. Especially like tipping. It took me 3 or 4 years to finally get it done, because nobody wants to talk about it when they go to South Africa, right? It's like a huge thing. So you did a podcast, I think 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago now, and it was perfect. That's something that
So
people need to know because nobody wants to tell you that.
for
It's
sure,
like
and
a faux pas.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that attracted me to your page so much, and following your story and stuff, because I think I get so frustrated especially on social media with guys, putting out all these kill shots and all this sort of stuff, because that's all great and wonderful, but the way you've expressed it, and especially the way you portray Africa, it's about experience. And I often say this, with my new up and coming business that I've got going here, is that I never want to sell a hunt, but I rather want to sell the experience. You know what I mean? So it's for the average hunter in the United States that can afford to come out to South Africa. They're not going to go and be shooting 30, 40, 50 animals a safari. They're going to be shooting the 10 package safaris, but it's more about the experience. And I mean, just following you guys this year with those kudu hunts, I mean, just to see the guys' excitement, because I mean, I've hunted one kudu my whole life, plenty with clients, but for myself, one. And when I watched some of that footage that you put on social media, you can relate, because that experience is so indrilled in you, and it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. But just for the disclaimer, please, Shaun, I don't want you to hide anything or hold back on this podcast. If there's any questions, or if I ask any questions, I want you to try and be as honest as possible. I know we try and beat around the bush, but that's something I've loved about your content. It's just straight to the point. What you see is what you get, and that's what we need to. So please don't feel like you have to hide anything.
No, and that's, I mean, I'm brutally honest sometimes, and I think that may come across a little weird, but that we show the good stuff and the bad stuff about it too. People people make mistakes. It's not always pretty. That spot and stalk doesn't always go down the way you want it to. There was an episode that we did. It was one of the first ones that came out this year from this past trip, and it was a father-daughter hunt with Mike, my buddy Mike, and his daughter Dakota, and it was a lechway, and she made a very good, what we thought was a very good first shot at 220, 230 off the six. Animal went down. Well, it turned out she spined it, got up, ran. She had to shoot it on the run a couple times, and I think she ended up putting 5 in it. And we showed it all, like the whole time, and it was a clusterfuck. But at the end of the day, things happen, right? That's the kind of side. It's not always just one shot, one kill. But from a hunting perspective, we want to be as ethical as possible and take ethical shots. But it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes you got to just go on the fly, and shit happens, so you deal with it and you go get it done. And at the end of the day, I'm looking at an 18-year-old girl that's never been out of the country before, and she's standing there with this giant lechway and the shit show that happened, and she's just as happy as she could possibly be.
And that's it. I mean, and in some ways, I think for the first time guys coming out, what you show and what you depict out there on your show, it's so important, because I think it takes a lot of pressure off the actual hunting and the professional hunters when they're out there, because they see in raw footage what actually goes on in the bush. And because a lot of the time, I mean, you get up to these big moments, especially on like your dangerous game hunts, kudu hunting, whatever it may be, and you often find that people, they want to put this picture perfect shot in there, and the pressure kind of overwhelms them. And I think that's where the buck fever term comes from. But so firstly, just keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. It's showing such a unique side to Africa, and it's coming from across the pond, if you know what I mean. It's not professional hunting is over here trying to depict a story that is not true sometimes, whereas your guys, it's just raw and it's uncut, and I love it. I absolutely love it. But where did the love for Africa start?
So this was, I don't know, nearly a dozen years ago now. We were actually at an NRA event in South Florida, and my good friend Mike Sumner, who I think you've met before at Hunters Hill, he and I and our wives were at it was a benefit, like a fundraiser kind of thing, and there was an Africa trip that came up for auction, and it was a really bad turnout that year. And it looked like it could be bought for pretty cheap. So he bid on it and won the trip. And it was a trip for 4 I think it was a 5-day to Limpopo. It was actually with Nooms on. And so we went. I'd always kind of wanted to go, but it wasn't like top of my list. There were several other things stateside I wanted to do before I went to Africa. And, frankly, I'm like, I'll go and it was a two animal minimum, per person. So I'll shoot an impala and a warthog. And I never got really excited about it until I got off the plane in country. So, and not necessarily in Johannesburg proper, but when we started making that long drive out to, we essentially we're on the Botswana border, so long drive through Limpopo, and but we're going down this cart path road for hours on end, and I can just start seeing eyes everywhere on the side of the road, and like, oh shit, what's that? What's that? What's that? And then it was like 3 a.m. when we got in the first morning. Slept in a little bit, got up, and I get out of camp and I'm looking at animals I've never seen in my life that are, 50, 60 yards away. Like there's lechwe, there's a giraffe, and I've seen pictures of these things, but I had no idea what they were. So it just like instantly that morning, it was like, oh my God, this is real and this is happening and this is so cool. So, and I got to enjoy it with a group of friends, and it went from we're just going to have a good time and see where this takes us, to just a passion for continuing to come back. And the first group, we got really lucky too. Noomzon runs a first-rate outfit. They're very, very good. And, I think that took a lot of the pressure off from us because I didn't know what to expect. And when you hunt with them, they do the whole VIP pickup at the airport. So, they're meeting you at the gate. They're there to collect your baggage. You meet your PHs as soon as you come out, and you're there with them through the entirety of it. And otherwise, going to Africa for your first time and not having that kind of thing can be pretty daunting, right? You don't know what to expect. And you hear such bad stories about perspective, like, oh shit, do I really want to go there? Do I want to take my family there? Is it safe? And well, the answer is yes, it is. It's no different than any big city anywhere else in the States. The same thing, but it was a really good experience. It was too short. A 5-day hunt is not nearly long enough. We learned that the first trip. But it was funny. We hunted for 5 days. I think all of us nearly cried when we had to go home because none of us wanted to leave. We had, I think, 2 animals on our list apiece, and I think that number got to 7 or 8 by the time we were done. We were seeing stuff that we'd never seen before. And, we, on the plane flight back, Mike and I talked for several hours and like, man, I've really enjoyed this. I think I'd like to go back. And so, he said, all right, well, let's make a plan and try to schedule something, maybe another 2 or 3 years down the road. 3 months later, we'd rebooked and we're back at, back over there. And this time we're going to Hunter's Hill, and we've gone every year with the exception of the COVID year that we just couldn't get in. We've been every single year since. And it just keeps growing. And, for me, obviously we all started with the Plains game packages and, learning the animals and what to expect. And there's a huge difference between, hunting in Namibia and Limpopo and then the Cape where you guys hunt. And even in the Cape, there's a bunch of geographically different areas and terrain that you hunt too. And that's so unique. So you can go to the Eastern Cape 10 different times and you can hunt areas you've never seen, and the hunting's totally different every time. And it's really cool to experience. I mean, I've hunted at night in a pineapple patch, for bushbuck before. And then it's just crazy the stuff you get into there. You never know where you're going to end up. And one of the things I really enjoy is the way that you guys, the PHs especially, have built these relationships with the farmers over there. So you can actually come and you can work with them and hunt game on their farms, and, kind of goes back. It helps them both, financially and with the meat perspective. And it's a relationship that we don't have in the States. And I wish that, if anything, people from the States would take that away, that say, hey, listen, this works over there and this could work here. Because if you go talk to a farmer here, they're going to say, hell no, get away. You're not going to hunt on my fence. There's none of that. Everybody's so worried about, getting sued or whatever it is. But the way you guys do it is fantastic. And just I think it's that passion for conservation and preserving the species, because they have a value, and people understand that there. And I wish that was something that I could take away and really get across to people here stateside.
Shaun, you mentioned something really interesting, because I want to get to relationships, but, I just often find that there's these 2 great conservation programs that you guys have in the States, with the whole tag system and the way, like you mentioned, the relationships with the farmers back here. And it's just weird that we can't find some sort of happy medium between the 2 and try and make everything work. But, I guess it happens. But like you've mentioned, you've been over to South Africa a couple of times, and it's something I've seen from my perspective, is that relationships are building a lot stronger, because I think the trust is held in a relationship. And one of, I mean, a very good friend of mine, Hannes, and you guys have built a fantastic relationship, you know, and you've taken him on with your adventures going forward. How important are these relationships for future safari planning going forward? I mean,
I
you know, has Hannes played such a big role in that?
Yeah, and he does. And frankly, you develop a bond with your PH. And it's once you find somebody that you've bonded with like that, and you have things in common, and you're both on the same page, then it just. I mean, I've hunted with Honest enough now where we don't have to really talk about anything. You know, we just know what each other's going to do and what's expected. And to me, there's that. It's just a peace of mind. You know, it's great to know that he's got my back, and I know that even prior to the hunt, you know, he spends months and months and months. He's going out, he's scouting, he's, you know, talking to people, he's scheduling, he's doing this and doing that. He's putting in all the footwork. So when we get there, the trip is as seamless as possible. And when I bring new people and they see that kind of relationship that Hannes and I have, and it's such a well-oiled machine, and all the work that goes into it and all the planning that goes into it, it just makes it nice. And then, you know, instantly when I bring new people, you know, they kind of form a bond with their PH, you know, and it's not all the time. You know, there's been some outfits that we've hunted with where, yeah, we've never had a bad PH. I don't think that exists. I mean, I'm sure there are some that are, you know, not as good, but we've never had a bad PH, and I've never had a guest that's come with me say, you know, I really did not like my PH. But with me and Hannes, it's like I'm only ever going to hunt with Hannes, period. You know, whether we're, you know, he went to Namibia with me last year, and we're going again this year. And I think I'm in country for 8 weeks this coming year. And we're starting in, I think we're starting in South Africa. We're going to Mozambique. We're going to Namibia. We're going to Botswana. You know, so there's a bunch of things we're doing, and he's going with, you know, on those trips. And it's important for me to be there. Even like when we were in Namibia, he wasn't actually my PH, but it was important for him to be there with me. And, you know, because I trust him. That's the thing. You know, I know that. So, you know, if he I never second guess him either. I just know that if he, you know, if he says, oh shit, then that means I'm on the gun, and it may not even be on my list, but you know, he sees something fantastic. And, you know, those are the kind of things that you can't, you know, you can go out, you know, try to hunt a free range kudu. Well, shit happens, and you end up seeing something that's just a fantastic trophy that you may never get a chance at again. Well, guess what? Our plans just changed, and that's what we're doing. And but having that PH that you have trust in and you built a bond with is most important, I think. And that keeps you coming back, even, you know, and PH has changed outfitters. You know, they don't always stay with the same company. And, you know, for me, it's more about my relationship with the PH than the outfitter itself. And like I said, the outfitters I've hunted with have been fantastic, but I'm going where my guy goes. That's just how it is. You know, so
that's such an important thing that you just mentioned there, because I just feel that that's where the industry has taken a massive shift. And I've seen it personally. I mean, I've been here this will be my 15th year coming up, and it's been such an interesting change of events. I mean, from 2015, I could have kind of seen it, you know, transcend into that clients building these special relationships with their professional hunters and trusting them on their every move. But with that being said, when you bring in new guys out, how influential will the outfitter be in making those final decisions? For instance, like the father-daughter hunt, they're going to have a certain package. How are you chatting to Hannes about selecting those sort of things?
Well, you know, so Hannes, that's the thing. So Hannes and I just aren't hunting buddies. I mean, at least once a month, if not 2 or 3 times a month, we chat. And, you know, so we start planning these trips, you know, a year in advance for the most part. And so he's got a really good idea exactly who's coming, what they're capable of. You know, we have those conversations. Are they comfortable? Are they hunters in the States? You know, how well do they shoot? Are they comfortable off sticks? And, you know, so he's got a good idea. And with Mike and Dakota, especially on their first trip over, they've both hunted before. You know, obviously Mike hunts with me all over the place. He's a very good shooter, but Dakota's 18 and young and not been out of the state. So it was important for us to put them with somebody that would understand there's a lot of patience involved with her, because you can't just go fast and shoot quickly and get comfortable, because it's just not going to happen. And, you know, Hannes worked it out where Chris Liebenberg was actually their PH. And I don't think they could have asked for a better PH for Mike and Dakota on their first trip. and I was there. I actually filmed for them for I think the first 3 or 4 days, and it was a struggle trying to get her on a zebra and on a wildebeest, and lots of missed opportunities, and it because you just have to take your time and be patient. And Chris was so gentle with her and so good, and he did it in a kind of a humorous way too. They had this banner going back and forth, and they really fed off each other, and it's really cool to see those people, because I'm now behind the camera and I'm watching people bond in front of me. And so by like day 2, like Dakota instantly, oh no, Chris is my guy and I trust him. Whatever he says we're going to do, that's exactly what we're going to do. And, you can see it in some of the videos where he said, put it on the shoulder. And as soon as I tell you to, just squeeze the trigger, don't even think about it. So that's what I did. And it went straight down, and it's great, and on. So it's important to pick the right pH for sure. And I think too, one of the things that I enjoy about Africa is the camaraderie. Even when there's other people at camp that may not be in your group, it seems like we all have something in common. We're all hunters and we're kind of there. So I've met, over the past, call it 10 years now, I've made dozens of friends that I would not have met otherwise from the States because, of our relationships built there and hunting together. But it's been unique. But I digress. The pH relationship with the client, I think, is more important than the outfitter. The outfitter is responsible to make sure everybody has a good time there, and that they're safe, and the food is prepared, and the lodging is set up. But at the end of the day, it's that pH that sells the brand, the company, the outfitter, because he's with the client every single waking second, and from your guys, once the client goes to bed at night, your job's not over with, right? You guys are still prepping and preparing, and then, you're up an hour or two or several hours before, everybody's up milling around camp, getting everything ready and make sure the buggies are ready and everything's fueled and the trackers know what they're supposed to do when, you've got a game plan, and there's a lot that goes into it that people don't understand and don't see. You guys, a lot of times you're getting 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night, if you even get that, because you're lining up what's coming the next day and making sure your client's taken care of. And, when you're sitting there having dinner, you're with your client, and, afterward you're having drinks and you're with your client. And I've never, like my pH, he will not leave until I go to bed. He'll sit right there with us the entire night and enjoy himself. And I know he wants to go to bed desperately. Like you can see, like he's tired, but he won't do it. He just refuses to. So, sometimes I'm like, I'm going to go to bed early tonight. Hanish, you okay with that? He's like, oh, yeah, that's fine.
But Shaun, I mean, so your relationship, I mean, it's just so, once again, you've just picked up and you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's often people overlook these sort of aspects, and I'm so glad that you said that it's become one of the most, it's really, really important for the professional hunter to carry the brand. So there's quite a bit of responsibility from our side towards the outfitter. We got to represent them as best as possible. But I wanted to find out what sort of leap of faith that you have to take, because something that slowly crept into, I want to say a bad habit, but the industry as a whole, is that a lot more Americans are doing a lot more dip and pack. Your relationship with Splitting Image is definitely a special one. I watched the podcast with Warwick, and that leap of faith, I mean, there's definitely risk involved in trying to give these people your hard-earned trophies to justify. When was that key flip that you decided, you know what, hang on, I'm gonna have everything done? Yeah.
Well, it was, to be honest with you, we, both Mike and I had friends that had hunted Africa prior to us going, and they had, I think they had a relationship with Lifeform, which is, I think maybe Thaba areas where they're based out of, or maybe closer to Joburg. So our very first hunt, we used them, and they were very good. And then I had other people that hunted the Cape before and said, listen, the Splitting Image, they're a good company over there, but listen to your outfitter. And so for me, I'd already seen people do it, and I know that it works well. So I did it once with Lifeform, and then since, every single trip has been Splitting Image. And with the exception of some logistic issues with especially those COVID years, I've never had an issue. Doug and his team do a fantastic job over there. And I think it boils down to, like I said, for me, it was a recommendation. And when I brought this group over this year, I said, listen, guys, this is how I do it. I don't dip and pack. I trust these guys. You got to remember, if you're dip and packing your stuff back to the States, you're letting taxidermists work on animals that are not even from this country, right? They don't do this every single day. These guys, that's all they do. They build their own molds, their forms, everything. It's like these guys really have it on lockdown. And yes, it takes a while. It absolutely does. but trust in them and they'll do a good job. And if there's an issue, you've got Doug and Warwick and their whole staff there. I mean, they're Johnny on the spot to take care of it. And shit happens, mistakes happen, stuff happens, but Doug is the first person. I think he'll get on the phone with you and apologize and eat it no matter what it is. He'll just listen, it's our fault. Absolutely. I'll make good on it, or I'll do something for you. And he's always been good that way. And, so I think the referral portion of it is the best thing. If you know somebody that's been and they've had, good success with it, it makes it easy. If I wouldn't have known somebody to begin with, I probably would have gone the dip and pack route. And I've done that exactly one time, and that was during that COVID year, and I regretted it. The quality of the trophies that I got back were not even close. The whole it's going to be faster and cheaper to get it done in the States is bullshit. That's not true. It took way longer, and it was probably 40% more by the time it was said and done. And, frankly, I've got a full body mount Limpopo bushbuck in my office, and it's one of the shittiest taxidermy jobs I've ever seen. I mean, you can see the stitching all the way down through, and it's just really disappointing because it's a several inch gold medal Limpopo bushbuck that I was so proud of, proud enough to have it full body mounted in the taxidermy shed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now he's really to a back corner with other stuff behind him because it just didn't turn out well.
Yeah, no, shame. And then these things, like you said, they happen. So have you had any bad experiences in Africa?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the taxidermy side. So on the logistics side, during the COVID year, I had an issue with one of the cargo companies that, they said, okay, your stuff's and, obviously you have got to pay for your freight ahead of time to get it drop shipped to Miami. And the price went from, we were expecting $2,600 for our crates, and the price went up to like $9,000 instantly. And the guy's like, if you don't want to pay it, your shit can stay here. And what he didn't realize is I had two other friends with packages on that plane with crates, and my volume and weight and size was almost identical, and they were getting charged that $2,500 rate, and they charged me, $9,000 US to get the same crate home. So, definitely had a bad experience there. But other than that, I had a little bit of a bad experience in Johannesburg proper. I decided the second time over to kind of logistically do everything myself, and I booked my own hotel and tried to stay a little off property and Marriott property, and just getting there. And you get in late at night, and it's really easy to get taken advantage of in Johannesburg. You've got all these porters that are there at the airport that, oh, no, it's my job, I got to help you. And then they always, then they want a handout, and then it's their 15 friends. And, it was enough where my wife and my ex-wife felt uncomfortable. And after that, I went straight to Africa Sky after that, never looked back. I've got Gilbert there. He's there all the time, and I can call Africa Sky and they take care of all our stuff. So it was a little sketchy. I don't think it was scary, but my wife certainly didn't like it, and it made her uncomfortable. But, and there is a downside to South Africa too, in that, not everything you see is peaches and cream. You're going to get a reality check when you get there. You're going to drive through some of these towns and villages that are, frankly, it looks like a third world country sometimes. And that's kind of the ugly side. We show all these beautiful areas that we hunt and these nice lodges and everything else, but that's part of that country. And you need to understand that that's, where the country's been, and from apartheid, where it's moved forward, and for centuries before with the Boer Wars and everything else that's happened in your country. And it's kind of led to this, from the Zulu Wars to the Boer Wars to the, on and on and on and on. There's always been civil unrest in that country, and it's kind of led to what it is today. But you got to take the good with the bad, right? I'd rather see it and don't, listen, this is the reality of it. This is the way life is now, and this is why we're here. And that's one thing that Hannes has been really good. And frankly, any PH I've ever hunted with, there's such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the history of the country, and I really enjoy learning about the country and the history. When the English and the Dutch settled and everything, and the Zulu Wars. I've learned so much along the years, and now I research it on my own and I read it on my own. It's just such an interesting topic. And but there, like I said, there's some parts of the country that aren't favorable, and you're like, man, this is not great. And you learned about the national flower right away, the plastic bag, and it's there's. And for me, I don't understand it, because there's a sense of pride in everything that I do. And I don't know how people could choose to live that way. And, but but it's here in the States too. If you go to the south side of Chicago, or you go to Detroit, or you go to some of the suburbs of, outside New York City, there's ghetto area. It's like that here too. So we have that same thing. And for me, I just wasn't raised that way. So I don't understand, why you can't have a little bit more, I don't know, personal passion and responsibility, and, want to, people need to see it though. I mean, cause it's part of the experience too.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, I think in both countries, us and the US, I mean, politics have played such a massive role in, just putting everyone on a terrible mental stability issue at the moment. I mean, wherever I turn, it's just bad news. We've got Israel and Palestine going off at each other, Ukraine and Russia. It's just a dog show at the moment. But Shaun, getting back into the hunting side of things, you've hunted pretty much everything. What is there still left for Shaun to hunt?
I do. So this year I'm Cape Buffalo. I've got 2 of the tiny 10 to finish. I've got a Sunni and I believe a red diker are the only 2 left there. Probably gonna. I had an opportunity 2 years ago with Greg to hunt a hippo, and it just didn't work out. So I've got a hippo. It's under the big 5 at that point in time. Yeah. And then for me, it's going to be moving up north and getting, start chasing the gazelles, the Thompsons and the Grants and some of the other lechways. And, lesser kudu is way high up on my list. And that's, kind of a bucket list kind of hunt for me, especially being successful. I've hunted several free range kudu in the Cape, and I've been successful and seen other people do it. And I just love hunting kudu, and, to chase a lesser kudu, I think would be really, really exciting. But still, I mean, there's tons of species out there that, that I've not had a chance to hunt yet. But for me, there's also, I'm a bow hunter too, and I really love to bow hunt. So there's this whole opportunity now for me to kind of start all over, right, and get in a blind and do it with a bow and spot and stalk with a bow, and that's a totally different kind of hunting there. And so it's not like, I killed one impala with a gun. That doesn't mean I can't shoot another one with a bow, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
how different has your first experience been? And I'm talking financially now. How different was your first experience from when you went the first time to where you are now from a cost point of view? Has the market decreased quite dramatically since you went the first time?
I think it has. Yeah, I think it's definitely decreased. I think there's a lot more value to be had now than there was back then. Especially, I've got, obviously I've hunted with Hunter's Hill a bunch. I've hunted with Nooms on several times now. And then obviously Avula more recently. And, especially if there's a good sized group going with you, there's the opportunity for the outfitter to say, you know what, I can set aside the entire camp. I can cut some expenses. We can cheapen some of these prices up for you and, get you on some good quality animals. So, but the prices in general have come down. I think on the taxidermy side, because of just labor shortages and everything else, that may have crept up a little bit. But I think overall, I think you get more bang for your buck now, certainly, than you used to. I tell people all the time that they can go on a 7-day hunt in South Africa and have the time of their life for, call it $10,000 to $15,000, and come home with 6 to 8 high quality animals.
Yeah, Shaun, it's so interesting to hear you guys talk like that, because for us it's always difficult. I mean, we're planning to come over now in January for the shows, and the cost is just astronomical for us to get over there and actually, try and run a business that side. But for you guys, it kind of seems almost extremely affordable. How does the average hunter in the United States, are they able to afford a 7-day safari here in South Africa?
Well, I don't know about the average hunter. I would say in general, yes. They certainly can't afford to come every single year like I do, and most people don't do that, right? So I'm one of those weird ones. I think you've got some clients that you've hunted that you hunt with every single year, kind of no matter what. I think Patrick's one of your guys, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so and I see he's over there. He's there more than I am. I think he goes a couple times a year sometimes, but he's really got it bad. But yes, I think you can. And actually, I'm bringing a group with me this year. I think there's 15 of us in this group that are coming on the first leg of the trip, and most of them, are just kind of your everyday hunter, and they've had to plan and save for the trip, and worked with them on logistics and getting the pricing right and the day rate, so they understood what they could do. And what they've realized is that money goes a lot further over there than it does here. If you just want to go on an outfitted whitetail hunt, at just a kind of a normal place, you're looking at between $5,000 and $7,000 with no guarantees whatsoever. I'd rather take that $7,000 and go to Africa, where I know I'm going to see, 50, 100, 200, 300 animals a day, in these concessions, rather than go sit in a tree stand, for 5 days straight to maybe see a deer.
Yeah.
So there's that side of it for me. And and it is affordable. It may not be every year for every person, but you can certainly, if you do the research and you save a little bit, you can absolutely go. I mean, the money people spent just chasing whitetails alone is crazy. If you actually added up all your time in the field and your fuel and the feed that you're putting out and your trail cameras and everything else you're doing, that's several $1,000s a year. And that's before we take into account licensing. So if, like for me, I'm in Kentucky right now where I actually own property, but because this isn't my primary residence, I have to pay an out-of-state tag, and it's nearly $400 just for me to hunt the state of Kentucky. Well, Ohio is just a stone's throw away, where we have the other farm, and I don't live there either full time, so I have to pay another $400 to hunt in that state. Georgia the same way. So I mean, I'm several $1,000s just in licensing, which I absolutely don't mind, because those all go to conservation problems or conservation programs, and that keeps our law enforcement, which is something I think that we do differently than you guys do. We spend a lot of money on law enforcement for wildlife, and I don't see that in Africa. You guys take it upon yourself to police it for the most part, and there are some security companies that can do that, but ours are nationalized police that actually do that. We have law enforcement that are trained specifically just for wildlife enforcement, and they do a very good job with it too. They get a bad rap because people don't like to see the game warden come around, but he's there to do a job and make sure that everybody's following the same set of rules, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. Shaun, I wanted to chat to you because, like I said, I love the honesty and stuff. And while we're talking about organizations and stuff, how important, I've got a situation now at the moment where, obviously, there's outfitters that have done a lot of people in, especially some of my clients and stuff like that. But often I go over to these shows, DSC, SCI, all of that sort of. What important role do they actually play there for you guys as far as protection's concerned here in South Africa?
That's a thing. I think if I'll give you an example. So Avula Safaris, Chris, and then you've got Nancy stateside. Nancy is when you go to the show, you're going to meet Nancy. So you've got an American woman there that has been there several dozen times, that has skin in the game and knows more about South Africa. She's forgot more about South Africa than I'll ever know. And to talk to a person like that, that's so knowledgeable and that has everything on lockdown from the second you walk in, everything's done, you don't have to worry about it. There's a sense of comfort there. When you talk to a South African, you don't get, as an American, especially you just randomly meet somebody, at the SEI convention or something, you don't know anything about them, right? So you don't know where they're hunting. Is it safe? Is it a good outfit? You really need to do your research and call and ask for references and see what they've done on social media. And then, if somebody's tagged in, reach out to them on, Facebook and say, hey, do you mind telling us about, the kind of trip you had, and was it enjoyable? And I've had some other people that I know that have gone over that have had horrible trips. They did not enjoy it at all. It went batshit crazy. The animals were of poor quality, just nightmares. And, problems in Johannesburg with transfers, and their firework paperwork wasn't done correctly. And then they had the transfer with the Eastern Cape, and Airlink wasn't ready they didn't realize that they needed to call East London first and let them know they were coming. So they couldn't get their guns from Johannesburg. So they had to have them curried. I mean, there's all kind of shit that happens. So for me, like having somebody like Nancy with Ebola there, that is an American that's been there, that can talk with passion and experience, that there's a huge level of comfort there. More importantly, if you go to Africa with somebody that's been before, especially more than once, I think that goes back to that recommendation, right? Like Splitting Image was recommended, and I didn't think twice because it came as a recommendation. I trust the people that are telling me this. I think that's more because in these new people, they always, when I come or when I'm getting to put these trips together, we meet several times and we're kind of preparing, and there's all these questions come up, and normally it's about safety. That's why, I try to kind of show the whole process in my video, from the time we're leaving to, I actually started at the range this year and had people shooting off sticks and working through that. And we've got an episode of what to actually bring to Africa, because it never fails. These guys that come over, for the first or second time, they're bringing 5 suitcases full of shit. Well, you don't need that. You can get away with one. You need 2 days worth of clothes. That is it. Literally, that's all you need. And the Vaki's filled all the way up, and you've got straps and ropes trying to tie a bunch of shit down for 2 people. I'm like, you're never even going to open that suitcase over there. What you doing? So, I think from a show perspective, if you have somebody like that in recommendation, it's good. It's weird for me to go and talk to a random outfitter, to be honest, just because I never know what you're going to get. I've had some bad experiences with outfitters in the States that I bought packages from the shows, and they turned out to be shit shows. And, anybody can put on a good show and show some nice pictures or have a nice elk on the wall or, a nice caribou or whatever. Everybody can do that. It's hard. You've got to be very careful and very selective. So I'd say, having somebody like Nancy on the Villa side, that was really, really nice. But for me, more importantly, was knowing that my PH said, no, this is legit. These are good people. You and your guests will be totally satisfied. And that's all I really needed to know, to be honest with you. Yeah. Pretty much, because we have that relationship.
So if there was any sort of word of advice that you could give to anyone coming out to South Africa for the first time, what are some of the key factors that you would advise them to look for, especially when we're going around these shows? We're coming into show season. Well, what are some of the, like you said, everyone can paint a pretty picture, but it's actually proof is in the pudding, number one, and number two. I kind of feel a lot of these outfitters, they overpromise and underdeliver. So what are some of the key factors that you would advise people to look for?
Well, I think a reputable outfitter is something that you're going to have to figure out on your own, and that you're going to have to do the research and really reach out and ask for references before you book with anybody. The thing is, you're going through these shows and everybody's got this, special show pricing, this, 10-day Plains game package with 8 animals for $5,000. Well, what in what world? I mean, those aren't trophy quality animals for $5,000. Those are going to be culls at best, or you're going to run into concessions that don't have any of that animal and they try to upsell you on something else. So, I'm always leery about packages. And what I've learned is that the cheapest outfitter is not the best outfitter. But then again, on the other side, the most expensive outfitter isn't the best outfitter either. I think there's a happy middle ground between where cost and quality kind of meet. Where they plateau together, and that's something that it takes a while to figure out. And like I said, I've had friends that have had horror stories. I just had a doctor friend that just got back, and he just really, it was his first trip, and he went with a group of guys that had been there before, and he absolutely hated it. Like, it was just, he said it was a shit show. They just didn't have their stuff together. They didn't seem, much for game. And it was just, and I've heard stories like that. Fortunately, I've never been in that situation. I've been disappointed a couple of times with the quality of animals that we were seeing, because we come late in the season. And that was something that was on us, though. If these outfitters have a tendency to stack clients on top of each other like cordwood. So as soon as the season starts, all the way through the end, they're hunting. And, if you've already had 30 or 40 groups through there, by the time your group gets there, these animals are running scared, for one, because they've been shot at for shit. All of the biggest animals, all of your trophy quality animals for the most part have been shot. So now you're on a second tier type of animal. And the outfitters that regulate the amount of people on these properties and understand that, hey, we're only going to shoot, 10 Impala off this concession, and we're only going to shoot 2 Sables off this concession, because that's what the population can sustain, and we know what we've got up and coming. And they get their list from their clients ahead of time, so they know, like, it's planned. Okay, we're going to go over here and we're going to hunt this black Impala for you, because we know we've got some studs over there and we've got a certain quota that we have to meet. Or you want a giraffe? I've got a really old mature giraffe, but we're going to go over here and do it. And there's some driving sometimes involved in being able to hunt that way. but I really don't mind it. It's not
Mm.
horrible, and you're to get that quality trophy and make that memory with your pH is worth it.
Well, just to add to that point is, I was a little bit naive last year or 2 years ago when I started doing hands pretty much late on into the season and pretty early in the season, uh, our summertime. So it's scorching hot outside, very uncomfortable conditions. We were blessed with some beautiful sceneries, but I started realizing that a lot of the guys were actually trying to book as early in the season as possible, like you said, to get those first good quality animals. Um, and I think that's one of the things that deterred me away from the likes of Hunters Hill and all those sort of places, because that's not conservation. You want to be doing it for the right reasons. Stacking clients up on one another. You got to you'll be just bullshitting yourself to say that's not conservation, or that they're not restocking that farm, because that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
It's the ugly side of the industry, and it's a side that I guess doesn't get a lot of attention because a lot of people want to deter from it. I know I was one of them that tried to hide it for so many years, but as a professional hunter, it kind of eats up with you and it catches up with you, because just like yourself, I mean, we're in it for the conservation side of things. I've got a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm trying to preserve as many species as I possibly can, for her kids to enjoy. So yeah, and those are the things that I would highly recommend for people. I mean, especially for myself, right now doing my own thing. It's difficult to find those farms, like you said, that put a quota aside, and
Mhm.
say we're only going to take off X amount a year. But to me, I'd rather struggle with that, knowing that I'm doing my part for conservation, than rather worrying about, oh, shit, when's the next truckload of GameSpec or Sable going to come, So
Right.
it is a
Well,
difficult side, an ugly side of the industry.
it is very much so, and I think that's one thing where kind of Hannes and I hit off on is that when I've hunted at some of these places, Hannes and I would just leave, and he would already have another farm lined up. So, hey, we're going to go chase Inyala, but it's going to be over here, or we're going to go hunt Gemsbuck, but it's going to be over here. So we're hunting these areas that have very low pressure, that have a quota, and like the farmer, you're only going to take 3 this year, kind of thing. And I know that Tian with Matola, he does a fantastic job. He's very strict on his quotas, and we glassed. I had Oscar with us, which is his first time in Africa, and he'd never seen a white blessed buck, and he saw one. He was like, "Oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever!" And you're looking over a herd of blessed buck where a small one, 17 inches, a small one, like that's quality game management. But you only can take 2. That's it. We're only shooting 2 white blessed buck this year, so that's the kind of thing that I think more people should do. And it's hard because you want to bring that money in, right? And you want to keep developing the client base, but if you shoot out all of your game, there's not going to be any left. So you can't pressure it, 7 straight months and just shoot everything out. It just doesn't work that way. Plus, you're going to piss your hunters off too.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody that's not been there before, that doesn't understand the difference between a 3-year-old Impala and a mature, trophy quality animal. They won't know the difference. And I've watched PHs do this a bunch. Man, this Impala is great, and I'm like, it's got fucking horns this big. You're bullshitting your client. He's like, oh man, this is the biggest one that I've seen in forever. Dude, I've passed 50 of those today. No,
Yeah.
like, and so don't bullshit your client. And I get it. You want your clients to be successful, and you want them to be happy, and you want them to shoot. But at the same time, I'd rather pass a low quality animal than shoot something that I know maybe not this trip because I don't know any better. But when you get back to the lodge and you're seeing all these other pictures of what these other guys have taken, and you look over at yours, and you're like, and then you got to look at your pH because you're the one that told me to shoot that fucking thing. So you're responsible. So, and I've
Yeah.
seen it happen, and I feel so bad for people. Like, I'm at the skinning shed, and everybody's slapping each other on the ass and good job, and I look over at this warthog that has got tusks that big, and man, this is a monster one, Impala, that's 14 inches or something like that, and their pH is just drumming it up. And I get that, but at the same time, it's bullshit. And I'm like, no, I mean, there's a better way to do it, guys. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to fix that part of it. I know that that for me, Hannes, like I said, we don't hunt a lot of the larger concessions. We go to smaller farms, and I got to hunt with obviously with Matola this year a little bit, and then we also hunted at Jordan Wardle's place. And that place, I don't know if you've ever been out there, but it's spectacular.
Yeah.
And his family does a really, really good job out there. And it's probably one of the most beautiful farms I've ever hunted on, to be honest. Save for maybe the previous year when Hannes and I got to hunt an Orby over the Indian Ocean. That was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, that's always something special. And I mean, those tags are very difficult to come by, those Orby tags. So yeah, it's an incredible hunt. But Shaun, how much of the safari is that? I mean, you mentioned it now, and I love it. I love it when I get to take my clients the opportunity to go to a cattle farm where a lady whips up a homey meal. You maybe spend the night there, or you sit down and have lunch with them, or whatever the case may be. But that's part of the experience. And I've noticed that, especially at the shows, a lot of the guys actually say they don't want to travel a lot, but it's definitely counts as part of the experience.
It does, and you know what? Unfortunately, you should expect some travel, especially if you want that high quality trophy animal. And there's guys out there. I've seen them. I'm only going to shoot a gold medal, yada 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 yada, and that sucks. It must suck as a PH to have that kind of client there. Because it's nearly impossible to shoot everything on the list has got to be gold medal or better. Well, maybe if you've got a buffalo and a sable, and you've got two good places, and the bull's there already, and you know which one, okay, that's doable. But when you've got 15 animals on your list and they all have to be gold medals or bust, that's impossible to do. You're never going to do that. You're going to waste all your time, and you're not going to enjoy the experience. And to me, that's more about killing rather than hunting. So, if my PH is happy with the animal and I'm happy with the animal, that's the animal I want, and what it took us to get there. So, yeah, it's definitely unique. And I think I don't know how to fix that part of the industry, from y'all's side, maybe I don't know. I think outfitters just try to book as many people as they possibly can and just stack people up, and it becomes an issue. For a first-time hunter going, it's probably not a big deal because they don't know any better. But second, third, fourth time, they start to learn. I can judge an Impala, I can judge a Sable, I can judge a Lechwe, I can judge. I've seen so many in y'all, I've seen so many Warthog. I can pretty much tell you whether or not it's a gold medal or not. But I've been there so many times and I've seen these animals firsthand that I can do that. A first-time hunter can't do that. He's totally relying on his PH. So whatever his PH tells him, that's what he's going to do.
Shaun, it's also. I kind of think, and the outfitter puts a lot of pressure on us as professional hunters. They want to make as much money off a hunt as possible. And again, I don't think when I say it, and it kind of sounds like I'm being a bit of an idiot, but it's not. It's just the nature of the beast. It's the nature of business. That's what it is. And there's definitely space for it in the industry. But what I'm hearing from you is that, and it might be difficult for first time hunters, but would you say that people coming out for the first time or even the second time, just to be a little bit more patient when making those decisions?
Yeah, I think so. And it's important to develop that. You need to give your outfitter your list as quickly as you possibly can too. A first-time hunter is not going to have a list. It's going to be a plains game package or something because they don't know what the hell they're getting into. But get them your list as quick as possible. And I think most outfitters want to do the right thing. They're not inherently bad people. They just run into situations where at this concession, we just don't have that, trophy mountain reed buck, and we need to go elsewhere to get it. So long as you tell your client that, hey, we're going to have to do a little bit of travel to get you this reed buck, but I know where some good ones are, and we, that's what we need to do. And the hunter's going to say, oh, hell yeah, let's go. So the idea of not having to drive and not having to move, I mean, that's ridiculous. That was some of that, early Keith Warren shit at Hunter's Hill where, there's everything here and you don't have to drive. That's true. Greg has fucking everything you could possibly want to hunt there. However, there's some of that stuff that you're just not going to get that caliber trophy. Like he doesn't have good mountain reed buck right there at the main farm, right? So you've got to go across the valley to hunt a mountain reed buck. He's not going to have any of the tiny 10 with the exception of maybe a Steen buck or a common diker that you're going to run into. So you're going to have to travel to go do one of them. But for a first timer in a plains game package, a place like Hunter's Hill is nice because you don't have to leave really,
Yeah.
but once you've been there a little bit, like I said, and I don't want to throw shit at anybody. Greg is in Hunter's Hill. They've always been fantastic to us. And matter of fact, this group that I'm taking back this year of 15 people, we're going to Hunter's Hill. It's with the exception of 2 of us, nobody's been before. So I'm taking a group, there's 13 newbies that are going for the first time. And I've been working with Simon, he and I chat often and he's getting everything lined up. And I feel really confident that Simon's going to, make things happen and it's going to work out well. And then from then, I think I'm taking a few days off, going down to meet with Doug and shoot some video at Splitting Image, go back up north, and then I'll finish the trip out for the next several weeks with Avul. I've got another trip booked with some other clients. We're going to their northern camp there, and I do a little until Hannes is actually booked up with a buffalo hunt. So I've got a 4 or 5 day window there where I've got to kind of cater to myself. But I figured, I'll bring the bow, I'll go sit in the boma and just enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, yes, that sounds like a fantastic. So, have you booked with an outfitter up in Mozambique?
Hannes he takes care of all that. So he's got somebody. I know last year in Namibia, we hunted a dik-dik successfully, and it was HW safaris or hunters guide safaris that he booked with, and it just happened to be, I swear it was Hannes's cousin. They had the exact same last name. I mean, it spelled the same way. He's a full unit. I'm like, they all had to come from the same place. But this guy, when he said he had dik-dik, if we didn't see 200 a day, we didn't see one. You were picking through the dik-dik to find the biggest one, and he's AW's like, no, too small. No, we can do better. To find dik-dik, that's where you go. Like, he's got dik-dik.
Yeah.
And Hannes took care of all of it. He's the one that lined it up. He did the research. He did everything. And then, so everybody was ready for us and to go. So I kind of rely on him to do that. And I think that's things people don't understand, what you guys as PHs do for your clients behind the scenes. And that's important to understand.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. But just the interesting thing here, you mentioned you're going to be taking a group over to Hunter's Hill, and there are 13 newbies there. With the success rates in the South African industry at the moment of 72% on return, how are you finding all these new people to come out with you?
It's one of those things. I think the social media presence and the way we've kind of changed the way we do our videos has really sparked a lot of interest. And so now it's becoming, friends of friends of friends, that know us through somebody else, that just see how much fun we have. And we talk about it so passionately, and we kind of live that life. And those people want to experience it too. And then I think that's kind of why I started tweaking and changing the type of format and getting into more of a storytelling mode with the video production, is because I wanted to show the experience more so than the killing portion. The experience is primary. The shot is secondary. It's fleeting. Most people, it's a second and it's gone. I hunted a giraffe this year, and the thing I remember the most is I've hunted so much now, I don't really get nervous anymore. So I'm just always pretty steady, and I never have a problem. I had to I cut it out, and then I have recut the video, and I'm going to re-upload it, because there's a section in my giraffe hunt where I had to tell Hannes, hey, you got to wait just a second. And I had to stand up off the gun. I'm like, dude, I need to catch my breath. This is like, and I never did. And I did. Like, my heart was beating like crazy. And I've always wanted to hunt a giraffe, and he's always been on my list, and this one just worked out right. And there were so many things that came together, and I was nervous as shit. Like, I had to back off the gun and, like, honestly, let's sit for a second, let me catch my breath so I can make an ethical shot, and then calm down, got back in. I cut it out of the original episode, and then I've recut it, and I'm going to re-upload it, because I think it's important for people to see that's something that happens.
How have you had any shit from that video? Have you had any backlash or anything?
No, and I knew it was coming too, and I knew it was a controversial subject, and I've never shied away from controversy. Obviously, I'll hit it straight on, and because I want that open discussion. I want people to question why we do it, and our ethics and our morals, and I need to open up that line of communication where it turns into conservation, because they don't understand what conservation is, and that's the only. If I have to do something slightly controversial to get them on on board and to start having that open dialogue, then that's what we're going to do. It's important.
Yeah, I did a podcast with Sue Tidwell, how she captured the whole conservation side of things, and I think something I said to her as well, and I kind of feel it happens from the greenies quite often, is that they're not willing to engage in that conversation. But it's also it's one of our biggest problems. I think I was on Keith's video the other day where I was actually watching the giraffe hunt, and just some of the hunters' comments on his video about, all this meat goes to the villages and all this sort of stuff. And I think the way you've depicted a lot of the video is you kind of highlight that, right, hang on, yeah, that's a little bit of a bullshit story, because it goes to the butcher and it touches so many different hands before it actually, it's not just getting dumped at the village,
Yeah, and that was a misconception that I had when I came to South Africa my very first time. I was under that same impression that, listen, all the meat's going to go to the village or going to go to the orphanage and it's all donated. And you know what? That's not true. That's a load of shit. So the animals have value not only as a trophy, but also because of the meat. And the outfitter is making money on that meat, and because, like I said, there's a value there. But what that does is it keeps the cost of those animals where a hunter can come and afford to hunt them. If there's not that secondary market there, fine. But my problem is when people bullshit you and they say, oh, no, we're donating all this and we're doing. No, you're not. No, you can't. Now, are there some outfitters that do? Probably. Yeah. All of it? Yeah. Hell no. And some of it should stay in camp for camp meat, and that's where your dinners are coming from. But be honest with people and just, listen, we had, there was 8 people on my giraffe hunt behind the scenes that people didn't see, and another entire group with the arbiter that was there on standby. Like, this was pre-planned. He and his crew were there just waiting for it. And because you've got limited time, it's a little warm and you want to get the animal taken care of. But I understand that, that's part of it. And I think if you're honest with your clients ahead of time and say, listen, that's not the real side of things. And sure, that does happen, but a lot of that is that pomp and circumstance shit show that people want to throw out there and show, like, oh, we got to go visit this orphanage and we're bringing all this meat there. And sure, some of that does happen, and I'm happy that Americans come over and they want to help out and bring something to somebody that needs it. But don't feed us a line of shit that this is where everything goes, because it's not true. And it only takes one trip for you to figure that out too. It doesn't take long.
So when your first perception to where you are now, I mean, you've experienced it pretty much all. It's nothing compared to what you wanted to expect. No, it's never in my wildest dreams could I imagine, especially being here and living kind of this life now and having such a passion for your country. It's crazy. Like, I've read, Hemingway and, Roosevelt and, about all these great hunters that have been before me and all these great tales. And it's just, I can't even put it into words. Like, it's just something Africa gets in you, and you can't shake it. But I'm fine with the perception versus the reality part, because I know now, and I understand as a business person that those things have to happen. That's also part of conservation too. That additional money that is being generated from the sale of the meat of that animal goes right back into the farm. It pays for staff, it pays for employees, it keeps the lights on, it does everything to keep that operation running and moving. And it's necessary. You can't just, that'd be like us just walking out here and shooting a deer and just cutting its horns off and leaving it sit there. I mean, no, that's not ethical in any way. I mean, we don't do that. So, but no, and I think it gets, for me, honestly, like, and I have no idea why. Every trip is better than the last. And I don't know how every trip is a little, and my list keeps getting smaller and smaller too. Like, I don't have these big lists anymore, but it's super targeted type of stuff. And like Hannes and I have this thing, like every time I come, I hunt a free range fallow deer, and we've done several together. And that's just one of the things we're going to do. And it's never primary on my list. It's just like, hey, if we get a couple days here or there, let's go, see if we can chase a fallow deer. And that's something we kind of just do together. And we just, love doing that. And then, when you get to the tiny 10 and those kind of animals, it's difficult. And those hunts can take some time. And they're, the success rate, right off the bat, like the blue diker, I mean, it's very, very difficult hunt. Fortunately, I shot mine, I think we sat for 3 hours, and the boma that was already pre-built and ready to go, and boom, it was done. I've seen and heard people that have done it for 2 weeks straight and never seen one.
kind of thing. And the same with leopard hunts, people sitting all night long for, days and days and days and never seeing a leopard. And so, but that's part of it. So, but I've been pretty fortunate and I really enjoy it. And each of those animals are challenging too in their own right. So, and they're definitely, they're not canned hunts. When you're chasing the tiny 10 and some of that other stuff, those are not even close. There is not a fence that can hold those animals in. And that's what I try to explain to people when they first come. I'm like, they ask me about, the high fence, right? So I'm like, yes, everything in South Africa is high fence. I said, but when you get to these concessions and start driving around, you don't realize how big these places are. A big chunk of land in the States, like my farm here is 300 acres and that's considered a large farm. But for you guys, you're talking about, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 hectares. That's not even. So our, definition of large and yours are two totally different things. And that's what I tell people. Listen, about the time you get into the front gate is the last time, for the most part, you're going to see a fence. So get that shit out of your mind. And these animals are wild as shit. Like I still, I've never seen a zebra that wasn't, hauling ass. Wide ass open. They always see me, see us coming, and they're always running. Like these things never slow down. So, but yeah, it's every trip has been unique, and it continues to be that. And now we're adding some other countries in there as we bounce around too.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned the whole half fence thing, and I have this debate with my fellow PHs constantly. I mean, it's one of those things where the misconception about a fence is huge, especially from an American point of view, because you guys are dealing with deer and bear and that sort of stuff. You're not dealing with eland that can, herds of eland that can push over a half fence in a matter of seconds.
Like that dude up there.
yeah, like that boy up there.
Uh-huh.
And that's the thing, because I think that the misconception is that these half fence keep these animals in to a certain extent. But trust me, I've been on many, many game farms where buffalo are 3 neighbors' farms down, hippo are in another dam. You're not going to keep a warthog in from on a half fence, and the whole misconception about, I guess, free range is always a nice way to say it, but I prefer to say fair chase. In mm-hmm. essence, the fellow deer, it's a fair chase, in the wide open areas, because what a fellow deer can do is jump a standard stock fence, whereas the springbuck can't, so that free range aspect gets kind of taken out of it. But Shaun, getting down to the bottom end of the stick, and I don't want to take your sales pitch away to the guys coming out, but what has been, I normally like to end is what would one hunt be that you would like to highlight, but I want to do it a little bit differently. What has been one of your most memorable hunts you've had in South Africa?
From an overall trip or an individual hunt?
Just an individual hunt, an experience.
For me, it's one of two. It's either going to be my giraffe hunt from this year, because there was so much planning that went into that. A specific animal at a specific farm with Tion and Hannes being neighbors, and that was really special to me to be able to do that, especially a bull that was 20 plus years old. But honestly, I think when I hunted with my wife and I was behind the camera filming for her while she was able to take her first animals, I wasn't even on the gun, but I got more enjoyment and more excitement and more nervous doing that than I've ever been when I'm on the gun. And I think, and it was a warthog, and I don't even remember what the animal was. I just remember the feeling that I got being there, watching them. And then I kind of get to relive that now when I'm hunting with like Dakota or a Staffen or somebody, their first time there, and you see their faces and how excited they are. And all the hunts that I've done, and there's a story too, right? I can tell you there's a story with every single hunt I've been on. I can tell you where that eland came from and where that hartebeest came from and where those games went. I know exactly where we were, who I was with, the time of day, and they're all unique in their own perspective. But for me, I think it's because of the conservation piece and knowing that we had to take that specific animal out of the herd, and it was that specific animal that it was it meant more that way. to me. And, it was just something different and unique that I think most people don't get the opportunity to do, especially with an animal that old and planning and, everything that goes into it. So, it's not about, we just didn't happen upon that animal, that was a plan. And there were several people. I mean, what the other part of that you didn't see is we had 4 different groups of spotters on that farm trying to locate, that giraffe, because, a giraffe will still disappear on you. You wouldn't think an animal that big could disappear. They do. Like right now, just gone. It's crazy. Yeah. So for me, I think that's it. And overall, I think just when I get to go with a group of people and I can see the enjoyment that they're having and the memories that they're making with their friends and family that they're going to bring back and share with other people, that's the best advertisement that you could possibly give anybody, right? Because those firsthand accounts of what happened, they're going to come back and they're, like I said, I'm bringing 15 or 13 new people this year, and it's all because of stuff like that. It's the stories and the videos and the experiences. These people aren't going to SEI and buying a random hunt. They're not going to Harrisburg and buying a hunt. They're not going to Dallas Safari Club and buying a hunt. These people are coming because of what we've done and what we've showed them, and they're kind of, they live vicariously through us for several years now, and that's kind of what drives that to go. But it's very, very unique. And like I said, I'm not done yet. So next year we could have this conversation. It may be totally something different then.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. I mean, I just love how passionate you are about South Africa and the conservation behind it. It's very, very seldom, I think, other than you and Pat, I don't know if there's anyone I've spoken to on the podcast that's more passionate about South Africa than you guys, but it's incredible to see. But bringing these groups out, what for a new timer maybe listening to this podcast or whatever, what would the one piece of advice you would give them, and not hunting aspect, as far as traveling over or having an experience here in South Africa?
Well, I guess it depends on where they're going and who the outfitter is. So if they're going to be hunting Limpopo, for example, they're going to get a VIP pickup and picked up right from the airport, and they don't have to worry about anything. If they're going to travel to the Cape, and so there's going to be a layover and an overnight stay, do your due diligence, talk to your outfitter, make sure you get that VIP pickup, make sure that you've got Africa Sky, or you've got, there's several there, make sure somebody's dealing with your gun paperwork and that you've got somebody there. That's the most daunting part of it, is getting there and that turning into a shit show. So if that's on lockdown and everything's good to go, then you won't have a problem. But that's what I would recommend first. From a travel perspective, the outfitter thing, I think a recommendation, is the best thing anybody can give. I actually, when I started hunting with Greg, I don't know, 7-ish years ago now, a little bit. And it was actually because of video that I found Keith Warren was there, right? So Keith was hunting it, and that's kind of how I figured out. I'd never seen, and I'd actually not seen Hunters Hill at the shows before. They're probably there, but I just missed them. And it was honestly, so I kind of opened up a dialogue with Greg and Charlene early on, and put some pricing together, and we went ahead and we've hunted there several times. And this trip that we're going this year has actually been planned for 5 years. Mike Sumner's son Emmett graduates high school this year, and as his gift, I bought his plane ticket, and Mike's taking him over on safari. And so, like this, it's been booked for 5 years, and then originally it was only going to be like 5 of us in that group, and just we've add on, and now it's ballooned into this thing. And then the really neat thing for Emmett is Emmett's doing an internship in Limpopo with Nooms on, so he's going to hunt first. And then he's going back to Limpopo. Our PH over there, Brent's picking him up, and he's going to intern with them for like 6 or 8 weeks and then fly back stateside. So his kind of senior trip is also an internship and actually learning the industry firsthand on the ground.
Yes, that's fantastic. And I would recommend every youngster that gets that opportunity, take it with both hands. It's something very, very special. Shaun, so the hunting side and setting these hunts up is that pretty much part of the whole Saltlick brand? Is that what you guys are doing? If so, How do the guys get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, and we're going to help anybody no matter what. So we co-sponsor hunts now. So we're working with Avula, and we'll work with other outfitters too. And I think the idea with this is, if we can every year co-sponsor 2 or 3 different hunts where we get people that watch us and follow us on social media that are comfortable with us and they understand that we're professionals at this, we've done it so many times, gives somebody an opportunity to go with a group of people where they know everything's going to be taken care of and handled. And that's what we've started to do. So we've done a co-sponsored hunt with a Bula that's going to take place after the Hunter's Hill hunt. And that's a different group that's coming over. Nancy's actually flying over with that group herself personally and handing them off. And that's going to be a 10-day hunt. And yeah, so that's the kind of thing that I'd like to do several times a year, is put those things together and to be able to hunt and enjoy it and get that kind of word out there. And from us, there's no money in it whatsoever. We don't do it we're not getting paid. Hunter's Hill doesn't pay us. The Bullet doesn't pay us. Nobody pays us to talk good about them or bad about them. The making money for us comes on the backside, on the sponsorship end and on the merchandising, especially. That's where, we're actually going to be able to make money. But for us, it's about enjoying it. And, frankly, if I get to go hang out with a new group of guys 2 or 3 times a year in South Africa, and that's the best life anybody can live. I mean, and I can open that world up to other people. And that's, something that's really unique. And then, as I kind of grow, we're going north. We're starting to, move north out of South Africa and go chase some of that other stuff. So we're super excited about it.
Shaun, I'm super excited to watch how the story unfolds. Myself and Hannes, we've been very good mates for some time now, and we often talk about your guys' hunts and how passionate you guys are about doing it, and just really from my side, I just want to thank you guys for putting South Africa on the map, number one, and number two, representing us in probably the best way I've seen in a very, very long time. So from my side, I just want to say thank you so much. But where can guys get hold of you? I know I'll definitely, in this podcast, I'll tag all the social media tags that I possibly can. But other than that, are you going to go to any of the shows this year or anything like that?
We're going to be at all the shows, but not as a vendor. We're just going to be there for several days. We'll go to Harrisburg. We'll go to SCI. I would think we're going to miss Dallas Safari Club because we've got another co-sponsored event we're doing with Triple P that's outside of Houston. But we'll be at several of the shows, and it's pretty easy to find us on social media too. You'll know exactly where we're going to be because Bree's posting all the time and knowing. But if you ever have a question, feel free. Any of our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all the platforms, TikTok, we respond almost instantly as soon as we see them. If I'm hunting, Bree will send me a text. Hey, you've got a comment on there. Somebody wants to reach out. Or you can email us at info@saltlickoutdoors.com. And, we're happy to help and set you up with somebody that we would recommend. And I think that's the biggest thing. I'm not going to tell anybody to do something that I haven't vetted already first or that I feel comfortable with. So, yeah, if anybody wants any information or, just wants to shoot the shit because you're like-minded and do the same things as we do, then feel free to reach out. We appreciate it. I think the more people that we can get doing this and talking about it, the better it is. And, it's definitely something that's unique to hunting. The ability to hunt. I don't know how many huntable species you have in South Africa, what the exact number is, but it's crazy. We don't get that in the States.
Sure. Other than YouTube, the podcast, where can they listen to it? Where can they find it? Are you guys on Spotify?
It's gonna once we get wrapped with the first season filming them, that's going to be available on Spotify primarily to start with. So and there will be a big release on social media so we're going to drop all the episodes not at the same time, but I think a week apart. But we're doing everything, filming everything. So it's both it's a video podcast as well. So you can live stream it if you like. But we've got actually lots of cool people. We've got a lot of talk about South Africa, but it's also we've interviewed and toured deer farms and different outfitters in Montana on elk hunts and just everything about. We sat down with the guys last year from Tethered, with the tree saddles, and so there's a bunch of cool stuff that we've done that it's taken a while to put together, but we're going to kind of release it out and then start getting ramped up for next year. And congratulations, by the way, on all your downloads. That's fantastic.
No, thanks so much. I'm hoping it ticks over the 2 million mark now with this one, but I'm sure it will. But it's been a journey, and like I said, when people ask me what's the plan for PH Journals, I actually don't know. It's just to try and reflect pretty much what you guys are doing, just to try and reflect our industry in the best possible light and just conservation. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but Shaun, from my side. Sorry.
I said, yeah, and ultimately, we're just fortunate to be able to live this kind of life and do this thing. And it's a lot of hard work and a lot of long nights and a little bit of sleep, but it's a passion that you just get for it. And like I said, fortunately that, I've been blessed that I can be able to do this and I can bring my friends along and encourage it and meet new people. So like I've got friends in South Africa all over the place now for these, relationships I made. And it's just a great thing.
Yeah. Well, from my side, I've had goosebumps throughout this whole episode. So, from my side, once again, just thank you. It's been an absolute honor to have you on the podcast. I wish you luck for next year. I know you guys are going to smash it out. Hopefully, we can catch up maybe at one of the shows.
Absolutely.
But yeah, just keep doing what you guys are doing. It's fantastic from a South African point of view. You guys are highlighting us in the best possible way. You representing our industry and our love for our country very, very well, and it's awesome to see. So from our side, I just want to say thank you, and we look forward to catching up a little bit later.
Yeah. Hey, and go Springboks.
There we go. World champions 4 times.
That was the first and only rugby match I've watched in its entirety from start to finish, and it was like I was on pins and needles the whole time. It was awesome. So now I'm hooked. Like it's not American football anymore. It's rugby. That's like a crazy sport. I love it.
No, well, fantastic, Shaun. I know you got a lot of things to do, and have a fantastic day further, and then we'll definitely catch up soon.
Perfect. Thanks, buddy. Have a good one.
Thanks. Cheers, bud.
Right.